Regulus Black had once believed obedience was the same as honor. He had believed it in the long, cold rooms of Grimmauld Place, where the portraits whispered blood like a prayer, and the silver on the dining table shone with the faces of dead men. He had believed it beneath the carved serpents of Slytherin House, where older boys spoke of destiny in low voices, and younger boys listened because they did not yet know the difference between strength and cruelty. He had believed it when he took the dark mark into his skin, when the wand touched his arm and the pain flowered black through his veins, and he had stood still because blacks did not flinch. He had believed it even when his brother's name became a curse at home, when Sirius slammed the door behind him and left the house to its screaming mother, its silent father, its younger son, who learned too late that being chosen was sometimes only another word for being trapped. But in the cave, with the sea roaring somewhere beyond stone, with poison burning through his stomach, and the dead rising from the lake, Regulus learned that obedience was not honor. Honor was terror, and doing the thing anyway. "Creature," he said, though his tongue felt swollen and his mouth tasted of rust. "Take it." The house elf clutched the locket to his chest. His ears shook. His thin arms trembled so violently that the chain rattled against his bones. Master Regulus must come. Master Regulus promised. Creature must take Master Regulus home. Regulus could no longer see clearly. The basin, the island, the lake, the ceiling of the cave. All of it shifted like black silk in a draught. The potion was still inside him. It had torn every secret from him as he drank, had shown him his mother's pride, his father's disappointment, Sirius laughing in the doorway with blood on his lip, Voldemort's pale hand on Creature's head, the contempt with which he had used a creature loyal enough to die if ordered. Worst of all, it had shown him himself. 16, adored by the wrong people, hungry to belong somewhere after Sirius had made rejection look so much like freedom. The Inferi were climbing. White hands hooked over the stone rim of the island. Faces without breath rose from the lake. Their eyes were filmed. Their mouths opened on silence. They did not hurry. They did not need to. The dead had all the patience in the world. "Go," Regulus whispered. "Creature will not." "Go!" The command cracked through the cave with the last force left in him, and the elf sobbed as magic seized him. With a sound like a whip striking air, Creature vanished, taking the locket and Regulus' final hope with him. For one perfect second, Regulus Black was alone. Then the first dead hand closed around his ankle. Cold shot through him. He fell against the stone, wand slipping from his fingers, nails scraping uselessly for purchase. Another hand gripped his sleeve. Another tangled in his hair. The lake breathed upward, and the smell of old drowning filled his lungs. He had expected panic. He had expected pleading. He had expected, perhaps, to discover cowardice in himself at the end. Instead, he thought of Sirius. Not the traitor his mother named him. Not the disgrace burned from the family tree. Sirius as he had been in the nursery. All sharp elbows and brighter laughter, stealing biscuits from the kitchen and blaming portraits. Sirius teaching him to climb the banister. Sirius whispering that monsters could be tricked if you were fast enough. Sirius at 15, already half gone, standing at the foot of Regulus' bed after a particularly vicious dinner and saying, "You don't have to become them, Reg." Regulus had turned his face to the wall. The dead dragged him toward the water. His hand struck his wand. Fingers numb, he seized it. Incendio. A weak flame sputtered and died. The Inferi did not. Regulus swallowed blood and poison and shame. He tightened his grip. All his life, he had been praised for purity, breeding, composure, obedience. None of it mattered. In the end, there was only a boy in the dark with death climbing over him, and one truth bright enough to hurt. He did not want to die for Voldemort. He did not even want to die against him. He wanted to live long enough to make the Dark Lord afraid. "Incendio!" he screamed. Fire roared from his wand, not red but blue-white, wild and ravenous, born of fear and fury. and the old violent magic of the House of Black. It burst across the island in a ring, struck the reaching corpses, and the Inferi recoiled. Their silent mouths gaped. Their fingers released him. Regulus rolled onto his stomach, coughing, the world spinning hard enough to tear. The fire would not last. He crawled. The boat was gone. The potion had gutted him. His limbs obeyed only in jerks. But across the water, beyond the army of dead, beyond enchantments layered by a wizard arrogant enough to mistake cruelty for cleverness, there was a way out. There had to be. Voldemort had brought Creature here and left him. Creature had escaped because elf magic moved differently through the world. Regulus did not have that. Regulus had only a wand, poison in his blood, and a lifetime spent learning the sort of magic decent people avoided. The ring of flame faltered. Inferi gathered beyond it, pale as mushrooms, waiting. Regulus pressed his wand to his own forearm, to the dark mark hidden beneath his soaked sleeve. It writhed faintly, as if alive. The skull and serpent inked into him by a master who believed marks made men property. "You wanted servants," Regulus whispered. "Call one?" He drove his wand into the mark. Agony struck. Not the clean pain of a curse, but something deeper, intimate and filthy, as if a hook buried in his soul had been yanked by a giant hand. The mark burned black, somewhere far away, perhaps not in space but in the secret channels of magic. Something noticed. Regulus screamed and pushed all his will through the brand. Not summoning Voldemort. Never that. Summoning what Voldemort had used to bind him. The cave answered. The enchantments trembled. The lake convulsed. The Inferi recoiled again, not from fire this time, but from recognition. They had been bound by the same cruelty, commanded by the same will, chained into motion by the same cold arrogance. Regulus felt it then. Not control, not mastery, but a seam in the spell. Voldemort had made servants of the dead and servants of the living, and he had not imagined one might stand between the two and tear at the knot. Regulus pulled. The dark mark on his arm split open. Blood ran black in the blue light. The Inferi froze. For 3 heartbeats, every dead face turned toward him. Regulus staggered upright. The cavern lurched. The far shore looked impossibly distant, but the water between was no longer still. It shuddered as if something beneath it were waking. "Let me pass," he said. The command was absurd. He knew it even then. He was no Dark Lord. He was barely alive. But he spoke with all the authority his name had ever given him, all the pride he had once wasted, all the fury of a boy who had finally understood that the monster he served was not immortal because he was great, but because others had been too afraid to imagine him bleeding. The Inferi parted. Not willingly. Not cleanly. They jerked and twitched as the binding fought itself. Bodies sank. Bodies rose. A narrow path opened through the lake, a strip of black water trembling beneath the cave's greenish light. Regulus stepped into it. The cold took him to the bone. He almost fell at once. Dead fingers brushed his legs but did not seize. The path buckled. The cave screamed with old magic, or perhaps he screamed. He could no longer tell. He moved one step, then another. The potion dragged memories through him like hooks. His mother's voice. Noble son. Serious voice. Run. Voldemort's voice. You are honored. Creature's voice. Master Regulus must come home. Home. Oh. The words struck harder than the poison. He would not go home as a corpse beneath the lake. He would not leave Creature with grief in a locket and no one to believe him. He would not let Sirius spend his life thinking his little brother had died a fool. He would not let his mother twist his name into martyrdom for a cause that had fed him to its own hunger. He reached the far shore on his knees. The Inferi surged behind him as the torn magic snapped back into place. One caught his cloak. Regulus twisted, sliced the clasp with a severing charm, and crawled over rock as the lake swallowed the fabric in his place. His palms tore. His breath rattled. He climbed because stopping meant dying and dying meant silence. At the cave mouth, the sea wind hit his face. Rain lashed the cliff. The night beyond was enormous, black and alive, full of waves hurling themselves against stone. Regulus dragged himself over the threshold and collapsed beneath the open sky. For a while there was only storm. Then, with a crack like the breaking of bone, creature appeared beside him. The elf carried the locket in one hand and a silver knife in the other, though what he had intended to do with it was unclear. His eyes widened when he saw Regulus breathing. "Master," creature whispered. Regulus tried to laugh. Blood came instead. Creature dropped the knife and flung himself forward. "Master Regulus lives. Master Regulus lives." Creature knew. Creature told the old magic. Creature told the house. Creature begged the house to listen. Regulus's vision dimmed at the edges. The house? Creature went home. Creature did as master ordered. Creature took the locket. But the house heard Creature's grief. The house remembers black blood. The house sent Creature back. Regulus did not understand. Perhaps he never would. Old houses had old hungers. Grimmauld Place had been steeped in pride and spite for centuries, but it was still a black house, and Regulus was still its son. Maybe that mattered. Maybe Creature's loyalty had found some door no wizard would have thought to look for. The elf pressed trembling hands to Regulus' chest. "Creature will take Master home." "No," Regulus rasped. Creature froze. "Not Grimmauld Place." Regulus forced his fingers around the elf's wrist. "Not yet. They'll be watching." "Where?" Regulus closed his eyes. There had been one name whispered by Death Eaters with irritation rather than contempt. One name Voldemort did not laugh at. One name Sirius had once thrown across the dinner table like a lit match, making Walburg a black shriek until the curtains trembled. Dumbledore. Regulus hated him on principle because he had been raised to. But principle had died in the cave. Pride could follow. "Hogwarts," he said. "Take me to Albus Dumbledore." Creature's magic wrapped around him. The world tore. The headmaster's office smelled of smoke, lemon, old paper, and the strange clean heat of phoenix feathers. Regulus landed on the floor hard enough to bite through his lip. Creature appeared beside him and immediately began wailing, not the theatrical misery with which house elves often punish themselves, but a raw, animal sound that made even the painted headmasters stir in their frames. Albus Dumbledore was standing before Regulus had finished falling. He did not ask who had entered. He did not reach for alarm bells. His wand was in his hand, but it was angled downward, and his face, lined and grave in the firelight, changed so quickly that Regulus knew at once the old man had understood more from the sight of him than most would have understood from a confession. "Regulus Black," Dumbledore said softly. Regulus tried to answer. His throat closed. Creature thrust the locket upward as if presenting a severed head. Master Regulus stole it. Master Regulus took the Dark Lord's secret. Creature obeyed. Creature brought Master to the Blood Trader's old professor because Master ordered it. "Mynheer." Several portraits gasped. One muttered something about insolence. Phineas Nigellus Black, asleep in a dark frame near the back, snapped awake with a snarl. "What is this?" Phineas demanded. "What has the boy done?" Dumbledore ignored the portrait. He knelt beside Regulus, and the movement seemed almost too ordinary for a man of his reputation. His wand passed over Regulus' body. His expression tightened. "Severus," he said to the empty air. A silver instrument on a nearby table spun violently. Fawkes lifted his head from his perch and gave one low, mournful note. Regulus's fingers spasmed. "No." Dumbledore looked down at him. "You need a healer. No Death Eaters." The old man's eyes sharpened. Regulus swallowed. "Snape. He's one of his." The portraits erupted. Dumbledore raised one hand, and silence fell like a dropped curtain. "Severus Snape is many things," he said, "and I will not ask you to trust him. But the poison in you is killing you quickly, and he is the nearest person capable of brewing what may slow it." Regulus laughed, or tried to. Slow it. Perhaps more than slow. Do you swear he won't call him? Dumbledore did not answer too quickly. That, Regulus thought dimly, was the first honest thing any adult had given him in years. I swear, Dumbledore said at last, that while you are under my protection in this castle, no servant of Voldemort will take you from it. At the name, the portraits flinched. Creature hissed and clutched the locket. Regulus closed his eyes. The office turned in a slow circle beneath him. Horcrux, he whispered. Dumbledore went very still. It was not dramatic. There was no thunderclap, no cry, no shattering of glass. But Regulus felt the change in the room more surely than he had felt the cold of the lake. The word landed in Dumbledore like a blade finding an old wound. Tell me, Dumbledore said. Regulus tried. The story came brokenly. Creature helped, filling in what Regulus could not. Voldemort's request. The cave. The basin. The potion. Creature's abandonment. Voldemort's laughter, colder for its restraint. The locket. The realization. The note Regulus had intended to leave in the fake locket, now unnecessary because he had survived to become his own accusation. Dumbledore listened without interruption. When Regulus faltered, Fawkes flew down from his perch and settled beside him. The phoenix bent his golden head. One tear fell onto the split flesh of Regulus' forearm where the dark mark had torn open. Pain flashed white. Regulus gasped. The wound smoked. The black lines of the mark writhed, faded, returned, then faded again to a livid bruise beneath the skin. Not gone. Nothing so easy. But weakened. Dumbledore watched with an expression Regulus could not read. Then the door burst open. Severus Snape entered in a sweep of black robes, pale face furious, wand already drawn. At 20 years old, he looked less like a professor than a shadow that had learned to sneer. His eyes flicked from Dumbledore to Creature to Regulus on the floor. For half a second, surprise cracked his mask. Black. Regulus's hand twitched toward his wand. Dumbledore stood between them. He has been poisoned by a potion guarding a Horcrux. Snape's face changed. It was slight, almost nothing. But Regulus had grown up among liars. He saw the fear before Snape buried it. A Horcrux, Snape repeated. Yes. Whose? Dumbledore's silence answered. Snape's mouth tightened. Move him to the infirmary. No, Regulus rasped. Snape looked down at him with cold contempt. Then die on the floor. It will be tidier than whatever sentimental confession you plan. Slytherin, Regulus whispered, venomous despite the blood in his mouth. Always so warm. Snape's expression flickered again, and for a strange moment they were not enemies, but two boys from the same house staring at different ruins of the same lie. Dumbledore said, "Can you brew it? If I know what was in the potion." "Creature can show you," Dumbledore said. The elf recoiled. "Creature will not go with the half-blood." Snape's eyes flashed. "What did you call me?" Regulus began to laugh helplessly. It hurt so much he nearly fainted. Dumbledore's voice cut through the rising storm. "Enough. Creature, you will describe what you saw. Severus, you will listen. Regulus, you will remain conscious if you can. If you cannot, I advise you not to do so merely out of stubbornness." "Nay, Bemba." Regulus opened one eye. "Is that your famous wisdom?" "Some of it." He might have smiled. He was not sure. They moved him not to the hospital wing but to a chamber behind the office. hidden by a bookcase and guarded by wards that made his teeth ache. Dumbledore conjured a narrow bed. Snape poured potions down his throat that tasted of ash, mint, and bone dust. Creature hovered with murder in his eyes. Phineas Nigellus shouted from the office until Dumbledore threatened to turn his portrait to the wall. Hours passed. Regulus burned, then froze, then burned again. Through fever, he heard fragments. Not merely a container, Dumbledore murmured. A fragment of soul. Unstable magic, Snape replied. If the boy touched it directly, he carried it only briefly. Creature carried it, the elf snapped. Then Creature may have saved his life twice tonight. A pause. Snape, quieter. Does the Dark Lord know? Regulus forced his eyes open. Dumbledore stood at the foot of the bed, the locket suspended in a sphere of pale light before him. It turned slowly, heavy and ornate, Slytherin's serpent glinting on its face. Even contained, it seemed to darken the air around it. No, Dumbledore said. I do not believe he does, and that may be the only advantage we have. Regulus's voice emerged as a scrape. Hell no, I'm missing. Yes, my family. Dumbledore looked at him. Regulus hated the pity he expected. He hated more that none came. The old man's face held sorrow, but not the soft kind. It was a sorrow that had seen enough war to know grief must sometimes wait its turn. Your parents may already be in danger, Dumbledore said. As may your brother. Serious? Regulus tried to sit up and failed. He has nothing to do with this. In Voldemort's mind, that will not matter. Regulus closed his eyes. Sirius, laughing. Sirius leaving. Sirius, alive somewhere under the same storm. He'll think I betrayed him because of Sirius, Regulus said. Did you? The question was gentle. That made it worse. Regulus looked at the locket. The thing seemed to pulse, as if something inside it were listening. No, he said. I betrayed him because he deserved it. Dumbledore's eyes shone behind his half-moon spectacles. Good, he said. That is far more dangerous to him. By dawn, Regulus could sit. By noon, he could stand if Creature supported one side and hatred supported the other. By evening, Dumbledore had sent messages by Phoenix Fire and Patronus, not to the Ministry, not yet, but to a small number of people whose names Regulus recognized with varying degrees of distrust. Alistair Moody arrived first, limping into the office with his magical eye spinning and a face like a battlefield. He looked Regulus up and down as if deciding where best to hex him. A black Death Eater with a secret, Moody growled. That's never ended badly. Regulus lifted his chin. I prefer former Death Eater. Former because you repented or former because your master tried to have your elf killed? Both. Moody barked a laugh. At least he answers. Minerva McGonagall arrived next, tartan robes severe, mouth pressed thin. She said nothing for a long moment. Regulus knew she had taught Sirius. He wondered if she was comparing them and finding him lacking. Then she looked at Creature, who was standing in front of Regulus like a very small, very furious shield. You are loyal, she said to the elf. Creature blinked, suspicious. Creature is loyal to Master Regulus. So I see. It was the first time that day anyone had spoken to Creature without condescension. Regulus noticed. So did Creature. Remus Lupin came last. Regulus recognized him from school. Quiet, shabby, watchful. One of Sirius Gryffindor pack. Lupin entered with James Potter at his shoulder, and the room seemed to tighten around old enmities. Potter looked older than Regulus remembered, though he could not have been more than 20. Marriage had not softened his arrogance so much as given it somewhere to stand. His eyes went immediately to Regulus' left arm. Regulus covered it with his sleeve. Potter's jaw hardened. Lupin glanced at Dumbledore, then at the locket, then at Regulus' face. Unlike the others, he did not look surprised. He looked as if he had always suspected the world might become this cruel if left unattended. Where's Sirius? Regulus asked before anyone could speak. Potter's face sharpened. Why? Because Voldemort will go after him to punish me. You don't get to say his name like you care. Regulus felt Creature bristle beside him. He put a hand on the elf's shoulder. I don't need your permission to care about my brother. Potter stepped forward. Your brother? You mean the one your family disowned? The one you stayed behind to replace? Yes, Regulus said, and the word cut him on the way out. That one. The room went quiet. Lupin touched Potter's arm. James. Potter stopped, breathing hard. For an instant, Regulus saw not an enemy, but a man terrified for someone he loved. Dumbledore folded his hands. Sirius has been sent for. He is not being told why until he arrives. Good, Moody said. Less chance he charges in like an idiot. Potter muttered. That's not a chance. That's a certainty. Regulus almost smiled. Then the fire went green. Sirius Black stumbled out of the flames with his wand drawn, hair windblown, face alive with irritation. All right, what's so urgent that? He stopped. His eyes found Regulus. The office disappeared. Years disappeared. For a moment, neither brother moved. Sirius looked exactly as Regulus remembered, and nothing like him at all. Taller, broader, untamed in a way Grimmauld Place had never permitted. There was a scar near his eyebrow. His clothes were muggle leather and wizarding boots and defiance stitched into human shape. He looked free. He also looked, suddenly, very young. Reg, he said. Regulus had prepared himself for fury, for suspicion, for the sharp cruelty Sirius used when hurt. He had not prepared himself for the sound of his childhood nickname spoken as if dragged from a locked room. Sirius. What happened to you? Regulus had faced Inferi. He had split the Dark Mark. He had spoken the word Horcrux before Albus Dumbledore and lived. But his brother crossed the room, and Regulus nearly broke. Sirius stopped an arm's length away, staring at the bruised mark half hidden beneath Regulus' sleeve, the bandages at his throat, the tremor in his hands. Who did this? Regulus looked at him. I did. Sirius' face twisted. Don't do it. I joined him. I said don't. I followed him. I believed. Sirius grabbed the front of his robes. James moved, but Dumbledore stopped him with a glance. You stupid little... Sirius' voice cracked. You were supposed to get out. Regulus stared at him. What? You were supposed to get out after I left. I thought if I made enough noise, if I took enough of her hatred with me, you'd see it. You'd run. You'd... Sirius shoved him back. Not hard enough to hurt, but enough to make Regulus catch the desk behind him. You joined him. Regulus's own temper, old and instinctive, rose to meet the shame. Yes, while you were playing hero with your friends, I was at home with them. Sirius flinched. Regulus regretted it instantly. That was the trouble with family. They knew where the knives were kept. I didn't know, Sirius said. Low? No, you didn't. You think I didn't wonder every day. I think you left. I think you stayed. They faced each other, breathing hard. Two sons of a house that had taught them love only as a weapon. Then Creature stepped between them. Master Sirius will not shout at Master Regulus. Master Regulus nearly died destroying the Dark Lord's secret. Master Sirius ran away and broke Mistress' heart and left Master Regulus alone. But Master Regulus is brave too. Sirius stared down at the elf. For once, he seemed to have no words. Regulus put a hand over his eyes. Creature. Creature speaks truth. Sirius' mouth opened, closed. Something like pain moved through his face, stripped of sarcasm and pride. What secret? He asked. Dumbledore answered. Lord Voldemort has made at least one Horcrux. Sirius turned slowly. A what? Regulus watched his brother learn that the war was worse than even the Order had imagined. He watched James Potter go pale. He watched Lupin's eyes close briefly, as if confirming some private dread. He watched Moody's hand tighten around his wand, and he watched Dumbledore lift Slytherin's locket in its sphere of light. "This," said the headmaster, "contains a piece of Voldemort's soul." Sirius looked from the locket to Regulus. "You stole that?" Regulus nodded. "From him?" "Yes." "In a cave full of dead bodies?" Regulus hesitated. "Yes." Sirius let out a strangled sound that might have been a laugh if it had not been so close to a sob. Then he